A savings account. Savings accounts always pay interest. We talked about checking accounts, and some checking accounts do, some checking accounts don't. Savings accounts always do. And the reason they pay interest is because when you're putting money in savings, the idea is that you're not going to be spending it. It's going to be sitting in there for a long time and accumulating. That's what a savings account is really for. And because you're leaving money in the account sitting there, in theory, the bank uses it. The bank borrows your money basically out of your savings account. And so they pay you interest for the right to do that. Because of this, because they want to guarantee that they'll have this money available if they're paying you interest on it, that they can use it, they often have withdrawal transaction limits. They don't have deposit transaction limits. You can deposit as many times as you want to, but a lot of banks will say you can only take money out of your savings account a certain number of times per month. And some banks it might be one or two, some banks it may be more than that. It just sort of depends on the account and the bank. And if they have those limits, if you withdraw more often than that, you get charged penalties. Also, certain types of savings accounts will have like maturity periods and things like that, where if you withdraw before that, you have penalties. Interest is the money they pay you. We talked about that on checking accounts, and it's based on the rate and the principal. The rate is the percentage, and the principal is the amount you initially deposit into the account or the current balance including new deposits. And that's kind of situational depending on what kind of problem you're talking about. Basically, though, it's money in the account. However, principal does not include interest that you have earned. So it's all the money that you put into the account, but not the money that the bank puts into the account. And simple interest is calculated on only the principal without any interest being earned added into the equation. So if I put $100 into my account today and I don't do anything else to it, I'll earn interest on it. But when they're calculating my new interest, they never use the money that they've put in. It's still only on that $100 that I put in. So that's what simple interest is. The formula for simple interest is I equals PRT. I is the interest. P is the principal. R is the percent rate converted to a decimal. We can't multiply percents without converting them into a decimal first. And then T is time in years. Okay, so if you don't have like a year, let's say you have 6 months, you have to convert that to half a year first. So it's time in years. Okay, so we have the checking account statements that you receive, right? You also get a savings account monthly statement that has all of your savings account activities, so all the money that you've put in and all the interest you've earned, and if you've taken money out. Some banks combine statements. Like my bank, if I were to get paper statements, I'd get a combined checking and savings on one statement. But because I do electronic statements, they're two separate ones. So it just sort of depends on the bank. Usually if they do a combined statement, the checking is all on top, and then there's like a line, and then the savings is underneath it. Some banks require a minimum balance for your savings account if you want to pay no fees. My bank has a $5 minimum balance requirement. So if I want to have my savings account be free, I have to keep $5 in it. Which, if I don't have $5 in it, I can't really probably afford the fees anyway, right? But some banks will have a $100 minimum balance, some have 50, some have 25. It just depends on the bank. And some banks don't have a minimum balance at all. And then a money market account pays a higher interest rate, but it usually requires a higher initial balance. I wrote balance, I meant deposit. Higher initial deposit and a higher minimum balance. At my bank, a money market account requires $1,000 to open it. You have to have $1,000 to even begin to open it, and then you have to maintain $1,000 in it. And they do pay higher interest rates on that because they're having these higher minimums, which means they're more guaranteed to have a more money to play with themselves. And a lot of times money market accounts, the money ends up getting invested. Kind of a savings account is called a CD. And they have a specific buy-in amount. I don't know if the smallest one that you can buy exists. I haven't done that research, but I know that you can get them for like $100, you can get them for $500, $1,000. And they're called a certificate of deposit, but you always, on the bank website, or if you talk to a banker, they call them CDs. Not to be confused with what music used to come on. And so it's a certificate stating that a specific amount of money has been deposited. So if I buy a $100 CD, I get this certificate stating that I have $100 on deposit at a guaranteed interest rate. So if the interest rates for a CD today were 5%, and I bought a $100 CD at 5% for 10 years, I'm going to earn that 5% up until that 10 years is over with. Even if next week interest rates drop to 2%, I'm still going to earn the 5%. It guarantees a fixed interest rate. CDs are nice because if you have some money that you want to put away, they usually pay higher interest, and that's because there's a maturity date. And if I take my money out before the end of that maturity date, I pay high penalties. So if I have a $1,000 CD and it's a 10-year CD, I can't take that money out until the 10 years is up. But again, I'm going to get a higher interest rate. So if I know for a fact I'm not going to need this $1,000 for the next 10 years, but I want to earn a lot of money on it, it's a good idea to buy CDs. They don't have to be 10 years. They have 1 year. They can go from 7 days up to 10 years. So, they're different amounts, different time periods, but they do pay a higher interest, and it's a guaranteed interest rate. Whereas if I put money in the bank today and my interest rate is 1%, that could change a month from now, again in another month after that. It changes all the time. Whereas a CD is a fixed interest rate. Banks will always do different things. Like some banks will tell you 2.5% interest, and some banks will tell you 2.5% interest. And if you want to make accurate comparisons, you need them all to be in decimal or fraction form. Now, it is easier to go from a fraction to a decimal than it is to go from a decimal to a fraction, mathematically. So we're going to go and put all of these in decimal form. So we want to deposit $5,000 in a CD for 2 years, and she's looking at interest rates by 4 local banks, not 3. Apparently I didn't count. 3 local banks and 1 online bank. Okay, sorry, I did count. Okay, so I'm going to write the interest rates in ascending order. So ascending means small to large, and descending would be large to small. Okay, and we want to find out which bank pays the highest interest, because if you're going to put the $1,000 or $5,000 in away for 2 years, you want it to earn the most money, right? So you're going to go with the bank that has the highest interest rate. So first I want to take 4 1/4 and I want to turn that into a decimal. So to turn that into a decimal, I divide 1 by 4. Well, 1 doesn't divide by 4, but 10 does. Another 0, it's 0.25. So 4.25%. And then E-save is 4 3/8. 8 goes into 3, no times, 30, 3 times, 60, 7 times, and 45 times. So this is 4.375%. Okay. So in ascending order, I've got 0.25, 0.375, 0.22, and 0.3. So 4.22 is the smallest, followed by 4.25, followed by 4.3, followed by 4.375. E-save pays the most. Now, is anybody interested? Raul has an account. He has to have at least $500 in it, or he's charged a $4 fee. This would be monthly. Anytime you say you're charged a fee, it's monthly usually. His balance was $716 when he withdrew $225. So what is his new balance? I'm going to take out that $225. So he's gone below 500. So now I'm going to have to take out that fee. So his balance would be $487.23. Okay, we have a $1,200 deposit, 4.5% simple interest. Simple interest is I equals PRT. Okay. We're going to keep the account, money in the account for 3 years. And we want to know how much is in the account after 3 years. So this is my principal. This is my rate. This is my time. And I want to find my interest and then my balance. So this is going to be a two-part problem. So my interest is principal times rate times time. So my principal is $1,200. Okay, my rate was 4.5%, but I can't multiply percent without converting it to a decimal first. So remember we have to move 2 places over, so it's 0.045. For 3 years. It's $162. Okay, so my balance at the end of the 3 years, if I've done nothing else, is my principal plus my interest. So $1,362. Well, we want to know how much will $2,000 earn in 7 months. But remember I told you T has to be years. So in order to do this, we have to convert 7 months into years. Nope. So I've got my principal, which is 2,000. My rate, I moved 2 places over, so it's 0.52. And what I do is I take my months and I put it over 12, because there are 12 months in a year. Now plugging this into the calculator, do the fraction first. 7 divided by 12, and you get this long decimal. Then multiply that by everything else. So basically, oops, I just went backwards. Darn it. Okay. Hold on one second. Okay, so my interest is $60.67. Okay. Questions on that one? Okay. We can go the other way too. We've got principal. This is my interest. This is my time, and this is my rate. So I equals PRT. So I'm going to plug in what I have. Interest is $1,000. I don't know what principal is. My rate is 0.05, and my time is 2 years. So I can multiply these two together, is 0.1, divide both sides by 0.1, and I get that P is $10,000. So if you deposit $10,000 for 2 years at 5%, you'll earn $1,000. Derek has a bank account, and we want to know with 4.1% interest, so that's 0.041, with a $910 balance, which is our principal. How long will it take for the interest to equal 1,000? So we've got I, P, and R, but we don't have T. So same idea. We're going to plug in what we have. Oh, but wait a minute, we don't have I. This is balance. So I is 1,000 minus 910. Right? Because we want to know how long before his balance reaches $1,000. So the interest is the difference between the current balance and the new balance. Does that make sense? So it's $90. Our principal is $910. Our rate is 0.041, and we don't know our time. So we're going to divide both sides by 37.31. And T is going to be 2.4 years. And yes, you can give me a decimal. I don't need you to tell me how many months that is. Okay, same idea here, except what we were missing here is the rate. We don't have R. We have our principal. This is the balance. And this is our time. So we want to know how much is the interest. We do 6,000 minus 5,000. So that's $1,000 in interest. So if I want to earn $1,000 by depositing $5,000 at some rate for 5 years, and I want to find out what rate that is. I'm just going to move over here. Sorry. So 1,000 will be 25,000 R because I multiplied 5 times 5,000. Divide both sides by 25,000. And I'm just going to show you the obnoxious decimal you get. Oh, no, not that obnoxious, is it? %. Sometimes the decimal will be really obnoxious and then you just round.